No doubt, no doubt. But I don't know. This episode kind of flew by. Anything else on your spirits right now?
No. Oh, I do have one question for y'all.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to ask it last week, but I'll ask it this week. It's kind of, I don't know if it's necessarily deep, but it's just been something that's been on my mind lately. And I
Deep,
think that's just because
deep,
now with me
deep.
being 33 and being more into my 30s, I'm trying to think about my future and making a plan and stuff like that. Because the goal is I want to have my own business by 40. So, um, but I got to that point by asking myself, like, is this where I'm supposed to be at in my life? Like right now? Like, should I be working more? Have I done enough? Like, what, am I happy? Am I in the right place? What's like, is this it? And I was just curious because I was like, I went such down a rabbit hole that it almost started to be like I started to doubt myself. It became like, when you ask too much too fast, it becomes overwhelming.
Yeah.
And that's what really happened. And it started to negatively affect me. And then I was like, I wonder if other people think this, like, or am I just fucked up? So,
Well, I think
yes,
everybody
I
kind
am
of goes
that
with
too.
that.
But
Yes and yes.
yes and yes. But I just wanted to ask y'all, like, like, do y'all ever like have those check-in moments with yourselves where you're like, do you ever question, like, am I where I'm supposed to be at in life right now? Like, and if so, like, how do you get over like that guilt of not feeling like you're doing enough?
I felt
Oh.
that. Oh,
No, go ahead.
go ahead. I
You go.
I felt a lot of that in my 30s, in part because I think that's part of. Okay, I'm gonna put on Mama.
Mom was good too.
For growing up, especially like part of like growing through your 20s is about, in my view, as I look back, was really about exploring what's out there. That's 20s are like team too much. You want to do everything and anything that's out there. It's about having fun, it's about living in the moment, it's about experimenting and da 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 da. That, when I transitioned into my 30s, that was really then about me crystallizing what I want to do with the rest of my life. And those kind of like existential moments of, questioning, like, am I, do I need to continue being in corporate America? Am I in the right roles? Do I go out on my own? Like starting to explore all of those things. But even within my 30s, I haven't really crystallized, like, I know I knew who I was, but I hadn't really crystallized like those elements of what I wanted to do, right? Start
Mm-hmm.
questioning, like, what is my legacy? You start comparing yourself to other people and
Mm-hmm.
what they're doing in their careers and their lives and the coins they're making and the da da da, all that stuff. That happens in the 30s. And what I found in my 40s, I let all that shit go. Because what I realize is that no matter where I am and no matter how hard it may be or how challenging it may be, I'm right where I'm supposed to be. So, yes, you still have all the choices that are out there in the world. And it took me into my late 30s to really get settled into the fact, like, oh yeah, I'm starting to feel more settled in who I am and what I have and where I'm going, as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to when I was in the early part of my 30s, where I was just like, the hustle was still there, the comparison was still there. I'm looking at, like what other people are doing and trying to measure myself against them, instead of really, I just wasn't in that space to acknowledge the fact that my journey, my struggle, my experiences help make me the person that I am, and they will continue making me the person that I will be in the future. So it doesn't matter if you're going through a struggle period or if you're going through a period of flourishing, because no matter where you are, you're right where you're supposed to be. There's always the opportunity for you to learn. There's always the opportunity for you to crystallize, what your experience is, and there's always the opportunity for you to change.
Mm-hmm.
So, like my advice to you is just recognize that the thoughts that you're feeling right now are normal. They are expected. And you don't have to have the answers. There are some things that will just come in time, but the fact that you are asking those questions, like, should I be thinking about this? You know, am I doing the right thing? What do I want to do with the rest of my life? What do I want to do with the next 10 years? What kind of milestones do I want to set for myself? Those are all the right questions, right? But the reality of it is there's no one specific path that you have to follow that says, oh, you're doing it right or you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
And I think another part of it too, like, because I'm similar to you, Jordan. Like, I think about that a lot. Just like sometimes I even think, like, what if I didn't meet Corey that random day at Big Chicks in Chicago? Like, where's that? Where would I still be in Chicago right now? But when I think about that, I'm like, okay, there must not be that many chance encounters. Like, you're supposed to be where you're supposed to be. So if I'm supposed to be in Atlanta, then let me work my ass off in Atlanta right now until I go into another random chance opportunity. Be like, damn, I didn't foresee that coming, but I'm gonna go down this lane. Another thing is too, like, a lot of times I used to think when I was like 26, be like, damn, I'm so old, da da da. And then here I am at like 36, and I'm like, I could have changed something then and been 10 years in. So now for your sake, 33, if there's something you want to fucking do, start today. Like, who cares? And if you don't like it in 2 years, then do something else. It's okay. And I think a lot of times, especially like our parents' generations and generations before, there was always this, you have to have a dog and a house and a picket fence and 2 kids
and a reliable job.
Right. You know, by this point, if not, you're sucking at life. No, like, they didn't have that many different opportunities, so they had to try to fight for the same shit. There's so many lanes we could do now, and that's okay, you know, and it's okay to not know what the hell you want to do. And another thing that I've had to kind of deal with myself as well is I still have a lot of dreams and things I want to do, but there are certain dreams that I had and still have that haven't come to fruition yet, that I've had to sometimes realize some of the dreams that I'm like, at this point in my life, I don't know if I'm holding on to the dream of the dream or if it's okay to actually let that go.
Yeah, that's something I'm struggling with too.
And mourn it, because that's something you like, damn, I've wanted to do that my entire life. And I don't know if that's really my dream now, because I've gone down a different path, but you're kind of still holding on to it and fighting it. And it makes you feel like you're not being accomplished when you have all these other accomplishments. So that's something for me that I've had to realize very recently for some certain things I want to do. I'm like, I still want to do them, but the way that looks could be different, and allow yourself to be okay with that. And and it's okay to mourn it as well, because it's something, it almost feels like it's a part of your whole life. And
can you
like,
also just talk about that, because that's a conversation that people don't talk about a lot. It's like letting something go and like grieving it. Like that is a skill that not a lot of us have. We don't practice it.
No.
You know, because there's almost like this self-imposed or exterior imposed like idea, this romanticized idea of what your life is supposed to be like. And it's like many of us are trying to live up to either this idea that we machinated for ourselves of like, oh, well, I should be here by the time I'm this and da 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 da, you know, or live up to expectations that society or our family or whomever puts on us. And it's like, I'm have to live up to those things. And, you know, we run ourselves ragged trying to live up to those expectations. And sometimes, just like a bad relationship, you know, you have to let that shit go through the grieving process to like all 7 stages, you know, till you get to the point of acceptance. Okay, yeah, you know what, now I've come to the place where I can see it clearly, I can see it objectively. Looking back, that was not a good situation for me, and now I'm ready to move on.
That part.
That's
and it's hard.
Talk about that.
It's hard because we're conditioned to like ride the car until the wheels fall off, literally. And then like, oh, the wheels fall off. Well, you know what? I got a spare tire, so I'm gonna pop that up on there. I'm like, you know what? That's okay. I'm gonna stay in the car and wait somebody to come drive by to help me get to my destination. You know, you're like, it's very easy to keep making excuses why to hold on to those things. And Kerel, like, you're absolutely right. Like there are some talents, and I think that's something that sparked it in me too, because there are some things that or talents of mine that I've always wanted to get into that I've never done. And knowing that I can do it and I haven't done it, I was feeling like I'm wasting these talents that God gave me that other people don't necessarily have, you know, and I felt like almost like I was cheating myself, you know, like if I man, if I really only have one life, why aren't I doing these things that I could do? You know, like what's the reason?
And change it. Like, cause like for me, music is literally the only thing I've known since a kid that I wanted to do. And I haven't done it to what I thought it was going to look like. However, I did the theme song for Minority Report. I do the Ask Your Aunties theme and I'm doing it in different ways that I didn't have the tools or the foresight for it to come out. But literally every week, people are listening to something I created. And I don't give myself that credit because you know, because I thought it was supposed to be like, I wanted Beyonce to be on my track or something like that, you know, which I still do. But sometimes it literally takes a moment to step back and be like, wow, I am getting out my talents in a different way. And I need to congratulate myself, acknowledge it. Yes, still more than Beyonce on a Kerel track. But I am at least getting it out in a different avenue and be okay with that. Yeah. And that's hard when you think it's supposed to be one way, and it doesn't necessarily have to be one way.
I pursued a degree in fashion design as a major in college, and I decided to change my major in my senior year to move away from that. I listened a lot to my family who were telling me at that time, you know, they just couldn't fathom, you know, this. I was very creative as a child. I loved to draw. I loved the arts. I loved, you know, music. I loved dance. I was very creative. And so when I was trying to think about what I wanted to do, it was like, you know, this was the age of the supermodels and MTV and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, you know, I want to get into fashion and blah, blah, blah. You know, so I went to college for fashion design, you know, and was kind of like living my fantasy. And one of the things that I realized was that as a designer, I didn't have a point of view. I didn't have a perspective, an artistic perspective. And within fashion design, you don't have to, but it's really helpful if you have a point of view. It's just like if you're in you know, graphic design, and you would have a kind of like branding perspective, like things you're drawn to. I say all that to say that, you know, I was working part-time at that point for a bank. I fell into training, and that became like my new, like, I loved investing in people. I loved being able to, you know, help people have like aha moments, which however I could. So that started my lifelong career. I've been in training and development, you know, for 20 years of my professional career. But don't you know that about 15 years later, 12 to 15 years later, I found myself working in fashion design, in training, but with a fashion company. And I did that for a number of years. So it's interesting, you know, and I would challenge you to take a look back at your life and who would have thought that a little boy from Gary, Indiana, would find his way in, you know, living on the West Coast, you know, in between two mountains, you know, and hosting a little podcast. And every day that you're coaching, you are touching 9 to 15 lives in meaningful ways, giving them life lessons and all that kind of fun stuff. And of course, you know, you're living your own journey. So it's, you know, when one looks back on how their life came to be, like Kerel, what you were saying about like, oh, well, if I didn't go to Big Chicks that night, or, you know, if you didn't walk into that bar, like one thing could have taken your life in a completely different direction. And that's okay. But if you look back at all those things that led up to you being where you are, the people that you met, the decisions that you made, it's wild. So then what does the future hold? That just means the future is a blank slate.
And every day's a new day. That's another thing, like even very recent, that I'm learning, that you could wake up tomorrow and say, I'm done with this job, I'm done with the podcast, whatever. And start a completely new life. Doesn't mean it's not going to be challenging. Doesn't mean you're going to not have hardships and shit like that. But it means you have that decision, that choice to do it.
Power.
Like, that's hard because we get so comfortable in certain things.
Yes, absolutely.
Like, whether it be money, like financially, or home, or this and that. But if you truly want to do something, you can wake up tomorrow and be like, you know what? I don't want to do this job no more. I don't want to do this. This is what I want to do. And I'm starting the new path that way because it's your life.
Yeah.
It's not good. It means
that's
it's
literally where
hard,
I'm at. Yeah.
But you have that decision. And that's the amazingness of being human. Like, you have that choice every day to decide what your path is going to be. But a lot of times we get in our own way because we idealize or romanticize, like the one was saying, something that we might have heard when we were a kid that took root, or
that it's got to be like that.
That it has to be like that, and it doesn't have to be like that. And I'm preaching to myself right now. I am so preaching to myself because literally you go through moments like that where you're like, I don't know if I'm doing the right thing at all. I really don't.
And that's good, and I appreciate all that because like there are days where like, I'm just internal and I'm just like, and I'm a true Capricorn in the sense of I am very like, what am I going? What is next? What are we doing after that? What are we doing after that? And so I very much live like, have a roadmap for all of 2021. Like I know I already got my plans booked for March, plans booked for like, I know where I need to do. Like I give myself a Q1, a Q2, a Q3, and a Q4. Okay. Like, and
maybe that's an opportunity for you this year is to not do that. Even it might throw you into a tailspin, but maybe that's contributing to, if things don't happen the way that you planned out for your 2021, makes you feel like I'm not being accomplished or not doing what,
Well, see, it's not that I don't have a problem with not feeling accomplished.
Okay.
Because I tried something. It's the not doing something at all. Like, like, you're you're 0% if you never try anything, and that's the issue. Like, there are things that I wanted to do that I just simply did not even attempt to do. And I'm like, I know, no, it's not that I didn't want to, it's just I didn't prioritize it because it kind of like that dream we were just talking about, it was instilled that it needed to look like this. And so now I'm in that stage where I'm trying to get away from that, and I'm trying to find those things that make me happy. Like I don't want to, I don't want to work to live, right?
Yeah,
or no, like
you want to work to live. You don't.
Yeah, I want to work
to work.
Yeah, I don't want to live to work. I want to work to live. I want to enjoy what I do every day when I go to work. I want to be the person of like, I love what I do. I don't want to be like, that alarm clock went off. Here we go. Like, let's go ahead and
make the
donuts.
Like
I don't want to fall. I don't want to fall into that anymore. I really want to be and feel passionate. And I want to go out in this earth, whenever my time is, being like, I lived and I was happy every single day. Exactly. And that's where my mind is. And so that Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4 helps me be like, all right, by this time you need to have your business plan, by this time you need to have an idea, that this time you need to be looking for grants and stuff like that. Like, although I'm not doing it all this year, I've done that with my ages. So I know, by 34, I need to have this, and by 36, I have that, but I don't know. It's just, I don't have a lot of people outside of you two and, like the group that we're also in Kerel too, to have those conversations with, because it's not something, especially as Black men, we're accustomed to talking about, like our finances and our, that vulnerability and, those deepest fears that we have of failure, because if you show any type of weakness, you're not doing something, and so then I found myself attacking myself for feeling that way because of that toxicity that we were taught, as young Black men.
Yeah,
so
that's natural.
That's why I wanted to ask y'all.
But yeah, hopefully that helped a lot of community members too. Like, I feel everyone goes through that, and I honestly think it's probably throughout your entire life. Quite frankly, I think you probably get maybe better tools as you age on how to identify that you're feeling a certain way and how to unscramble it and be like, okay, this is why I'm feeling this way. here's my new course of
Mhm.
action or whatever. But yeah, every day you wake up, you thank the Lord you woke up and figure out if you want to do what you're doing that day. Like, you don't have to.
I do feel like I do also feel like, you know, that let's dispel the myth that every day has to be like you're living your best life. There are going to be
That's true
days,
too.
and there are days where you are just where you're a cog in a wheel. You're pushing the rock up the hill.
Mhm.
But if you're pushing the rock up the hill, doing the think about our relationships. Not every day is rosy,
No,
but that don't mean that we shouldn't be in that relationship. Like,
Right.
you go through some times where it's just like it's dry as hell, you know, and you go
Yeah.
through some times where it's like fiery, you know. But
Yeah.
you know, I think if the idea is if the end game is that you're building a life with one another, then that makes doing the dishes that much more tolerable. So if you have a day where you're just running errands and but you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
those mundane days where you don't feel like you're quote unquote getting something accomplished because it's
Right.
not like, oh, I'm checking something off that's like that's a major to do on my list. That's part of the process.
Yeah.
You know, you endure the monotony and the boredom sometimes, and the, you know, and the disappointment, you know, because those things are part of the journey of getting to the accomplishments.
And we
right?
need to
So now-
normalize that, though. That's the thing. Like, the things that are hyped and that are often displayed as the end goal. You don't see
You don't see
the
the work.
behind the scenes.
Yeah.
You don't see the actual
No.
work, you know. And I feel like that's where I find myself being like, is, you know, checking myself, like, is this correct? Because I don't know if this is what I need to be doing to get to that, you know.
Yep.
And so, you know, I just encourage people to just start normalizing it and just speaking up and just being like, hey, like, you know, sometimes it's like this, sometimes it's like that. And just reminding each other that it is something that is common, that we all go through, and that we don't need to suffer in silence. Because I feel like I find it like, I find myself feeling like it's eating at me.
Mhm.
And that is something that I have to fight and deal with on my own, because it's not something that's normalized.
Mhm. Well, and it's a very similar thing with, like, you know, like social media FOMO. You know, people are always posting like you know, like the big trips and the you know, the new cars and the da 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 da, and you know, and a lot of us are looking at this and we're like, there was that feeling of inadequacy because, like, oh damn, you know, I need to be, you know, in, you know, I was gonna say hungry.
Puerto Vallarta.
Puerto Vallarta.
But here's the thing.
I would love to be
I know
there.
why she wasn't hungry. I know why she was there. Okay.
Hungry. It's like, damn, I wish I was at that orgy.
Like, I want to be there.
But on the flip side of that too, like, a lot of times we give like a negative connotation to the grandiosity that is social media. But on the flip side of that, if you are working your ass off to get that trip or to get this podcast, to have a Monique Hart on your podcast or whatever, hell yeah, I'm gonna post that shit, because like, I know the journey I had. And that's a lot of times too that like we need to identify as just like, okay, I'm jealous of that, but damn, hold on, they probably had to go through some shit. And once you do that, then almost that FOMO gets taken away, because you're like, damn, it is a lot of work. And that's not to say everything is work. Some people get it easy and this and that, and privilege and shit like that. But if you are truly working hard for these trips or that house or that car or whatever it may be, show that shit off, because I worked my ass off for this shit. Okay. And, you know, and that's part of the whole picture of it that we need to make normalized. Just like, yes, I know, okay, they flaunting, they stunting right now. Let me back up. Why am I feeling this way? Oh, but you know what? They probably worked their ass off on this. So congratulations for having that. Congratulations for having that person on your podcast. Congratulations for getting that movie, because there is 9 billion hours of shit that they had to go through to get to that ending point, you know? Anyway, but yeah, that was a great question though, Jerrell. That really was.
Yeah.